So, what do we think of the King's speech, Anne? Exciting?
I wouldn't call it exciting, and of course I don't believe in a big state, and that's what the King's speech was all about. So no, I wouldn't call it exciting, but I did enjoy the spectacle.
You like the occasion. Despite being read out by the monarch, it was written, of course, by the government, and it details their priorities for the months ahead. It's the first time Labour have crafted the speech since 2009. First time a king has read it since 1950, we think, for a Labour government. Here's a snapshot of what was said.
My government's legislative programme will be mission-led and based upon the principles of security, fairness and opportunity for all. My government will seek a new partnership with both business and working people and help the country move on from the recent cost of living challenges by prioritising wealth creation for all communities.
The state opening of Parliament is an historic event with some traditions going back to the 16th century, so there's plenty of pomp. More than 1,100 members of the armed forces were on show as the King and the Queen travelled to Westminster in a grand carriage. The King wore the imperial state crown, which has almost 3,000 diamonds, could be worth £1 billion. Darryl, I know you look at this and you don't feel excited.
Oh dear.
I mean, look at it.
Yes, do.
I mean, OK, listen, this is not a reflection really of my feelings about the institution of the monarchy necessarily or King Charles himself, but I just wonder if there is a really uncomfortable contrast between what we're seeing there and the reality of people's lives, and also how people feel about politics. I'd make one point, just one serious point, which is that I travelled the length and breadth of the country during this election campaign, or the Times Radio election bus, speaking to people about politics. And the one thing that, and you'll know this as well, probably both of you, because you were both out on the campaign trail, weren't you? And speaking to people, apathy, anger, disenfranchisement. What's that got to do with the... People feel it. Well, I guess
is it the golden carriage is so far away from our lives, Anne?
Look, ordinary people love this. We know that. On the big occasions like coronations, etc., they absolutely love it. They go mad for it.
What is ordinary people? What does that mean?
Sorry?
What is ordinary people, though? What does that mean?
Well, ordinary people means your average Brit, basically. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying it's not just a few, people who are interested
non-royal.
in this. This is generally, crowd-pleasing. And no other country does pageantry like we do it. And I just think, quite honestly, no, I don't think you're a Republican. I just think you're a misery guts.
I happened to be on the other side of our great capital city yesterday, so I ended up cycling home past Westminster on the day. So this is me it's called the embankment cycle lane. You can see, by the way, the sheer numbers of people on bicycles now. I'm almost caught in a traffic jam of bicycles. But as I approached Parliament, I thought, and we'll probably all agree with this, I just thought it is a beautiful building, isn't it? It's like the stone is almost dripping. If you look to the left as I just go down here, that's Westminster Bridge, so that's going south that way. I'm turning right with all these people on bicycles. Again, just admiring, and I suddenly thought, oh, I know, it's a bit of a big day because it's King's Speech Day. And if just as I go around the corner here, we'll just speed it up for a second, you can see they also have a bit of pride flags here, by which I mean lots of Union Jacks. So there are a lot. I don't see that many Union flags all in a row. So it was one of those days you think, wow, I passed Westminster at the right moment, and it gave me a little thrill. And you not disagree with that?
No, I think the Palace of Westminster.
You wouldn't knock it down.
No, the Palace of Westminster is extraordinary, and I go there a lot, and it's beautiful, and it's incredibly humbling as well when you go in there, isn't it? And I do think it's a strange contradiction, isn't it? Because for some people, I think that will give them an undue sense of grandeur. For others, I think it is a humbling experience. I think that depends slightly on what your origin story is. My issue with what happened yesterday, and my issue with a lot of the pomp and the ceremony, is that there is a rupture, there is a disconnect between people's lives and politics, which is dangerous, by the way. Democracy is not a given. We have to get people signed up to the idea of democracy. We have to make them feel and believe like they are represented, that it's for them.
And getting rid of the procession will make them do that.
It's not about getting rid of the procession necessarily. It's just about the optics of our politics appearing more grounded in the reality of people's lives.
I mean, we had a little bit of this yesterday, the idea that you don't count for anything unless you're elected. Jurgen Klopp wasn't elected. Why is this obsession with electing people?
What democracy?
Will you
Yes.
answer that?
What's the obsession with democracy?
Well, some of the most angry people
prefer?
are the ones who are upset that President Trump was elected.
Well, I don't necessarily people. Well,
Or Boris Johnson.
I don't understand the point. What do you
Well, the point is just that you can end up with people getting elected who you don't like at all.
Well, exactly. That's democracy. That's exactly it. That's exactly the point. Actually, I've got to say,
Or too many. Look, we've got a Welsh Parliament, a Scottish Parliament, a Westminster Parliament, a European Parliament.
too much democracy.
Might have a Cornish Parliament.
What?
One day.
Well, we're running out of people, aren't we?
Can I just make one point? Actually, what you see in America right now, right, when you see Donald Trump and you see the MAGA movement undermining democracy in the way that they are.
Well, there you
and
go.
you contrast that with what happened in our election.
He's running for election, Darryl.
You look at the Conservatives who lost in our election. You look at the way that Rishi Sunak held himself on the steps of Downing Street. Almost every concession speech on the morning of Friday, the 5th of July, was not always dignified and graceful, but accepting of the.
Okay,
the
all
rhythm of
right,
democracy.
fair
I'm not
point.
quite sure what any of that has got to do with the procession.
No, but I'm just making the idea that you get good people by electing them. I'm just saying you get
good
Well,
people.
you do.
but
You get a variety of
You
people
get
by
some
electing.
shockers in there. Here's the thing. Okay, obviously the king is not elected, and apparently he seemed a bit to get a little bit grumpy over his robe, the 18-foot robe of state. He wanted a page boy to hang it over the arm of his throne, and he's just, okay, well, whatever, You're allowed to
It's very cumbersome. It's very cumbersome.
Yeah, and so those two young lads are the page boys, and he did. Did he wave them away a bit now? I don't know.
I don't think he did that.
I don't know. People were comparing it to the
They're
fountain pen.
always looking for something.
Yeah. One of the most extraordinary responses yesterday was from the former Prime Minister Liz Truss. She's on this show every day now. She took issue with a detailed government write-up which accompanied the King's speech. And what she didn't like is that it gave some briefing, so this is almost on a level of facts. It says a fiscal lock is intended to stop anything like the disastrous Liz Truss mini budget, which basically destroyed everything. And she said, wait a minute, this is civil service writing that. That's a breach of impartiality. And blow me down, they actually took it out.
Well, they should have done. And I'm actually quite surprised that got past the senior civil servants who would have been looking at it in great detail. Because that is a value judgment. They've called it disastrous.
Well, it was.
No, that doesn't matter. When you're supposed to be completely impartial, and that was not an impartial statement. So I think she was right to complain. But I'm just surprised that it ever got in there. And I mean that because
what do you think?
That briefing will be gone through with a fine-tooth comb.
But I mean, Darryl, isn't it a fact that it was a disastrous budget? Or have I got that wrong, genuinely?
Well, I mean, it was disastrous. Whether it was the right thing to do or not is open to debate, isn't it? What I would point out is disastrous was in quotation marks, wasn't it? In that.
I didn't see them.
No, I didn't.
I don't think it was. No.
I don't think so. You may have seen something we didn't see.
Okay, well,
fair enough. But the point is
that's just her from while she was an MP. She's not an MP anymore. So.
The civil service obviously walk this fine line, don't they, where they are trying to act in the interest of and echo the view and the sentiment and the objectives of the government of the day. And so, I mean, yeah, possibly, was it necessary? Probably not. I also think, just a slight aside, I also think we have to be careful beating up on people like Liz Truss. I think it further entrenches her into a position that she's found herself now, which is that she's often looking for, the far right have kind of opened their arms to her. You become further radicalised. It entrenches her in her position. I think to take a breath and a moment of reprieve.
Who are the far right?
Oh,
I want to know who these far right are.
I've never heard anyone say that. You think she's drifting towards Tommy Robinson?
No, I think she's
not.
been. Hang on a minute. She shared a stage with and was embraced by Steve Bannon. I mean, that's what the far right is, and I think that she is a classic example of somebody who has been publicly shamed,
Yes.
who's publicly failed, who's been publicly humiliated, and this happens so often where that happens to somebody, and it entrenches them in a hardened view.
What an interesting thought. I've never heard anyone say that, because I think a lot of people just treat her as a sort of a bizarre form of entertainment, because she seems to have no self-awareness. Anyway, after the break, we'll talk more about the King's speech, what was in it. First, though, what is your verdict on the King's speech? Keir Starmer's vision for Britain. 0207 862 2222 is the number. 40 packages of proposed new laws affecting pensioners, renters, workers and more were unveiled yesterday. Water companies, private schools, small boat gangs, the railways were also central. The Prime Minister gave the speech, a big sell in the Commons later, and the Tory leader Rishi Sunak promised to hold Labour to account.
We will stop the chaos, fix our foundations and take the brakes off Britain. A King's speech that returns politics to serious government, that returns government to public service, and that returns public service to the interests of working people. That is the path of national renewal, the rebuilding of our country.
Now, the party opposite has successfully tapped into the public's desire for change. But they now must deliver change, and we on this side of the House will hold them accountable for delivering on the commitments that they made to the British people. In the national interest, we will not oppose for the sake of it, but when we disagree with the government, it is our responsibility as the opposition to say so.
What do you make of what was announced by Keir Starmer and Labour? We've got some of the top plans here for you. Let's take you through them. Then you can call and tell us what you like, if anything. You can see at the front the smoking ban. That's obviously the old Sunak policy that's been revived by Labour because Sunak ran out of time. Free breakfast clubs for school children. Axing hereditary peers is in there. Changes to pensions. Workers' rights, banning 0 hours contracts. We've got the Liz Truss mini budget being stopped from happening again. Tackling the small boats, you can see in the back row. Day one sick pay and parental leave. Yeah, there's lots there. Renationalising the railways. It's all there. Tell us what you think of that. We'd love to know. And you talk first. What do you think of it all as a sort of a general sort of parade of policies?
Well, what it is a parade of a huge amount of spending. And also in places a parade of nothing masquerading as policy, for example, stopping the boats. The only way that Keir Starmer can think of stopping the boats is to say that, well, if France will turn back some of them, hasn't even said all of them, then he will accept a quota
Have some water.
of asylum seekers in response. So,
Pause there, I'll come get your water.
I'm going to say this about spending.
Right.
Let's take the railways. He's not just going to confiscate the railways back. He's going to have to buy back the shares. Then they become responsible for all the investment in the rolling stock. They become responsible for the wages bill. There are actually very big spending commitments in there, sometimes not obvious ones. Yeah,
they'll renationalise when the contract comes up, so it'll be gradual. But what do you think? Do you think it's a big state here, Darryl?
I think it's more radical and more state-y than he sort of presented, I suppose, during the election. I think it's quite smart, actually. I think it conveys this idea that they are working, that they get into work and doing stuff. I think they're kind of wanting to sort of tread this fine line between not being too present in people's lives, wanting a government in the background to a degree, whilst also trying to actually fix the problems. I mean, the problem with sort of taking a hands-off approach, deferring to the private sector, all that sort of stuff, is that we've tried that for 14 years and it's left us in a mess.
Blair tried it as well.
Well, it may be.
Well, yes, no, actually,
we do know we've ended up with sewage in the sea, and that is the biggest indictment of private ownership. And it seems like if you get the government to run things, they fail. They used to call British Rail British fail. If you get the private sector to run things, what happens is that the people in charge gouge
regulators.
Yeah, but they gouge the money out.
No, this is the problem. I think you're right. I remember nationalised railways. I can actually remember it. I remember nationalised electricity and all the rest of it. Yeah. It was hideous. But what's happened with the water is that the private sector's focused on profits, and the regulators have not done their job. And it's no good coming in now and trying to do it. No. This should have been done years ago.
Yeah.
Years
OK, let's go around here and just have a look at this wonderful little array of policies. And Peter in Wolverhampton, do you want to pick one out for me and tell me what you think is a good policy from Labour and a bad one?
Well, I like axing hereditary peers, and I don't like the rest of it.
You don't like the rest of it? OK, the hereditary peers. Isn't there something to be said for getting some people in who are only there because they're somebody's grandson?
No, I think it's all appalling. But my point that I rang in to make was that I think Starmer's only vision is to get re-elected in 5 years, and all these policies you have there are just little tokens to get re-elected in 5 years. That's the only vision.
It's funny, Peter, isn't it? Because if you look at all these policies we've got here, in a way it's quite conservative in that they could have done absolutely anything. They've got a majority, which means they can get anything through for the next 3 years.
Fine.
And there's nothing... What do you say, why?
5 years.
Yeah, but 3 is before you start to then campaign for re-election, right? So 3 years, thank you. And there's nothing very, very, very big there, Peter. There's nothing surprising, certainly, is there?
Well, I found his speech to be more conservative in regards to the crown and service than Rishi Sunak was earlier in the year. He actually is more conservative.
Thanks, Peter. Terry in Kent, hello.
Hi, how's you today?
Have a look, Terry. Let's have a look at these policies again and see what we can we sell anything to you here? What about the local control of bus services?
Well, I was going to phone up about the new energy bill.
That's it. Now that is a big one. The clean energy company, the Great British Energy. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, are they going to own their own wind farms and solar panels and anything, or are they going to do it like everyone else, buy the same place everyone else does? Because they do that. They ain't going to save no money on it. You've got to own your own kind of things to do things. You with me?
No, actually, I mean, sorry. Help me understand. You're saying we've got to create our own energy?
No. If the energy company's got to own their own energy businesses, like the wind farm, they've got to own their own wind farms, own their own solar panels to save money.
I see.
Because otherwise you're only buying it off the same people as everyone else is.
Yeah. So you don't like the government owning it?
No, what I'm saying, the government's got to own it to have it cheaper.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So you nationalise energy and... I don't know, we're going back to nationalising things, aren't we?
I'm not sure that argument makes much sense. And I think that what Great British Energy is about, it's about creating an investment vehicle that allows us to invest in energy infrastructure in the United Kingdom that leaves us less reliant on international stock of energy. I mean, we've had Putin's boot on our throats as far as our energy is concerned for a very long time now. And I think it is... I think we can sort of talk about it in these binary terms as nationalisation and the states getting involved and should it be the private sector. The honest truth is, and what this King's speech I think recognises, is there are some things that are better in the hands of the private sector. There are some things where we get better value as a public from the private sector, and there are other areas where we don't. Energy clearly being one of them, water and the railways. I mean, you talk about British Rail being a nightmare. I'm about to get the Avanti West Coast main line.
Oh, good luck with that.
And it's a misery. My life is a misery. Please don't tell me.
You should have tried the nationalised ones.
Please don't tell me.
I remember.
I'm not going to. Please don't tell me, with my life being such a misery as it is, with our productivity on the floor, with the contribution that our railways make to stopping us, frankly, getting around the country and creating the sort of the economic engine of the country that we need. Please don't tell me that there isn't an alternative. And also, the fact that these companies are paying huge dividends to their shareholders as opposed to reinvesting in this train stock. I mean, there is an opportunity.
You can tell me that when you've seen this.
Okay, let's have a chat.
Let's see. All right. So we've got, after the break, more calls. Okay, so we've got this selection of policies for you down here. All right. And we want you to tell us these huge tombstones, I guess we've got them on. We want you to tell us what you think is the policy that's going to make the difference. Tackle the small boats, day one sick pay, criminal charges for water bosses, axing VAT. We've got axing, there we are, hereditary peers, clean energy, smoking. Yeah, all of that. And we'll be back in just a moment. 0207 862 2222. Audrey in Edinburgh, which policy do you like the most? Let's start positive.
Quite a few of them. I think the railways need changed, and the water certainly does, and the boats need to be sorted out. Mm-hmm. I think Keir Starmer needs to be given a chance. I voted Labour this time, and I feel that he will do a good job, a much better job than the Tories did. They let us down massively, and they should never have got rid of HS2. That was the biggest mistake ever, and I hope that gets reinstated.
I don't think it will be, but I think they've already demolished homes people were living in for 40 years to build a railway line that's been cancelled.
I know, and why cancel it? It was stupidity.
I know. Well, no, I don't want to say that. It was so expensive. We all sort of knew it was too expensive. So, and I guess COVID as well.
Back in the end, it was going to give a lot more money back in the end.
What don't you like? Which policies don't you like, Audrey?
I'm not quite sure what ones I don't like.
Well, that's a good sign.
Give him a chance.
Okay.
Give him a fair chance. I think he's got a lot of respect in my book. I think he's an honest, seems an honest and sincere man, and I think he really is going to try and make Britain great again.
Okay, lovely.
And that's what I want.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to that. Thanks, Audrey. Raymond in North Yorkshire, hello.
Hello. Good morning.
Anything you'd like to point out in our little... It's not a graveyard, but it's sort of... It's some policies
I like
there.
the vast majority of it, and particularly about the railways as well, because I worked on the railways for over 30 years, and all aspects from crossing keeper to working in the main HQ offices on planning to tickets to answering the phone at the Inquiry Bureau. And I remember distinctly a woman ring me up just before privatisation, and there was a work to rule where they stopped work at 6 o'clock in the evening, and she was going ballistic. There wasn't a train from London. And she says, I can't wait for privatisation. I says, you will regret those words. And I'd love to meet her now.
Well, I don't... So, OK, you're a great example, because Anne and I have just been complaining a little bit about British Rail as it was, and because we all remember the sandwiches and all that. And railways will always have late trains. Was it better when it was British Rail?
1,000 times better.
Really?
1,000 times better.
Anne says no.
There was this consistent aim to get people down and pick out the worst points of what was going wrong, and then magnified those 10 times over. And that's what the Tories love to do.
Well, that may be...
Well, let me just say this. I used to be a commuter in those days. I was commuting into London every day. We were lucky if the trains ran, if they ran on time. There were strikes. There were wildcat strikes. I remember it all. In the 70s, it was terrible. And the idea that, what we've got now is worse. What we've got now has its faults, but it ain't worse than what I went through when I was using the trains every day.
Trains seem to be on time to the second now, though. I mean, if they are on time, if they exist, if they run, they do leave on time.
Do they?
Well,
really?
Certainly, if I'm running...
EWR doesn't.
You've been very, very lucky.
Well, yes.
Well, I get Avanti West Coast.
Well, I know that is a whole
and
other story.
the problem with Avanti West Coast, the problem with the West Coast Main Line is that it is congested. It's a Victorian infrastructure, completely congested, doesn't have enough trains running through it, is extortionately expensive. The private business model doesn't work for that particular line. By the way, and I'll be critical here, there isn't very much actually in what's being proposed here that actually solves that problem. What we need is a new rail line. We need a massive investment. We need Anne to hold her nose and hold her breath and commit to...
I've just pointed out the expenses of nationalising the railways.
Listen,
I've just pointed out.
The hard truth is that with something like our rail infrastructure, we have for so long now underfunded and underinvested that the only solution, unless we decide to not bother with a rail network in the future, is to hold our nose and to throw everything that we have.
Well, so you want to raise taxes. How much higher do you want them to go?
Different conversation. Very, very different conversation.
Well, OK.
Well, no,
how you pay for things is a different conversation.
OK. Well, we could cancel Trident. We could get out of...
No, we will not cancel Trident, and at least he hasn't proposed that.
Well, why not? I mean, you can't get...
Because, Jeremy...
You can't ride a nuclear weapon. You need a train.
It is the only deterrent that we have.
Right.
And a nuclear deterrent that we have, and we need it.
All right.
But can I make one point? Because what we often do in these conversations is we go, oh, well, it's transport infrastructure or high taxes or Trident, and we make false equivalences. We make false choices. There is a way that we can fix some of these infrastructure problems so that they are an investment to make us money. Think about how much better off our economy will be if people like me can get around.
Yeah, I agree with that, but it's just that we can't surely borrow any. Hang on, Anne. Let's go to Brian in Newport. Brian has been waiting. Brian, what do you want to say, my friend?
With the GB Energy, I'd like somebody to explain to me how it's GB Energy. When you're looking for investment, investors want money. That's the whole point of investment. And most of the investment's going to come from foreign countries, not over here. So
well, that's all right. We'll take it however it comes.
How can you say that there's going to be energy security when a foreign country owns that? Why doesn't he tell the truth? Why is he calling it GB Energy and it's owned by us?
Well, we're
underwriting it.
Because investment may very well come from overseas, but it is investing in UK infrastructure. And the key element, I think, as I've understood it, of GB Energy, is that it is an investment in UK infrastructure, which makes us less reliant on energy produced elsewhere. The investment might well come from other parts of the world. Some of it will come from here. I mean, that's the way that the world works. You're seeking outside investment as a country. The point is that it is UK-based infrastructure that puts us back in control of the energy we produce.
OK, Brian, thank you. Let's have another look before we go to our break at our brilliant little array, I'm calling it, our array of King's Speech policies. Thank you so much. I'll just go, actually, let's just remind ourselves, we're going to do this again one day. This is a great way of displaying them. There they all are. And later on, we talk about whether you're sick of sport being on the telly.